Welcome to Worldview Tube's Washington Report on this September 18th, 2025. And I'm welcomed with Jim Papp of theconservativecaucus.org. Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Logan?
Good, good. You guys have an event coming up, don't y'all? At the Conservative Caucus?
I don't know yet. Still up in the air. I'll talk to you about it offline.
Okay, all right. Well, Trump, he's still over in the UK today, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the biggest stories was that he had a helicopter malfunction and they had to do emergency landing with him and Melania on board. So we're glad that didn't go bad. Yeah,
it looks like they did a quick switch out and they did it out of an abundance of caution, actually, more than a real emergency. But it's really odd when your president is on foreign territory and you have to change up your security plan, because that's a massive change in security plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's on the plane not too long ago over on Air Force One talking to the media, and they asked him about the mayor of London, and why it's a guy, Sadiq Khan?
Yeah.
Sadiq Khan. And they asked him why he wasn't there, and here's what Trump had to say.
What do you think about the fact that you attend an event in England, a state visit, spectacular, right, and yet the mayor of London can't be there?
I didn't want him there. I asked that he not be there. I don't want them. I think the mayor of London, Khan, is among the worst mayors in the world, and we have some bad ones. If you look at Chicago, but I think he's the equivalent of the mayor of Chicago. I think he's done a terrible job. Crime in London is through the roof. The mayor of London, Mayor Khan, has done a terrible job. And on immigration, he's a disaster. No, I asked that he not be there. He wanted to be there, as I understand. I didn't want him. I've not liked him for a long time. I just think, I have a certain pride in London and UK. My mother was born in Scotland, as you know. And when I see Mayor Khan do a bad job, the stabbings and the dirt and the filth, it's not the same. No, I didn't want him there.
Well, there you go. Seems like Trump's even calling the shots over there in the UK.
He breaks all the rules, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And some of them needed to be broken. London is a mess. And by the way, he's a Muslim, heritage person. I don't know if he's naturalized UK citizen or born there. I can't remember. But there are some dozen cities or more that are run by Muslim folks. I'm not anti-Muslim, I have to tell you that. But I just think it's really interesting the way that political correctness has just entirely taken over that country. I just saw Tommy Robinson, who led that massive rally in London this last weekend, posted something. There are like 12,000 arrests in the UK under some time period. I can't remember what it was, for posting something online. The next largest number was 3,000 in a list of countries. And it's absolutely absurd in my mind what these mayors of major cities, apparently not just here in the United States, but in the UK, what they do. London is a disaster. It's from everything I hear. I haven't been there for a long, long time, but it really is a disaster from everything I'm hearing. And I think it's the right thing to do in this day and age, start calling out people who've taken us so far down the wrong path. And so there comes a breaking point, and Donald Trump has been that breaking point in a lot of areas. There comes a breaking point in the stupid things that have been done for so long, and I can't fault him for it. And the guy deserves no honor. I mean, why would you give him such an honor? I mean, he's actually being very gracious to give Keir Starmer any bit of an honor. He dishonored him in a way the last time he was in the UK, not for an official visit, but he made him go out to Turnberry that Trump owns to meet him. So I'm for this approach, because there is a lot of shaming that's necessary for world leaders who have just screwed everything up for their countries. And here in the West, Europe and the United States, I just don't think we can countenance it anymore.
Yep. Well, Trump was also asked about Ilhan Omar on the plane, and here's what he had to say about her.
I think she should be impeached. I think she's terrible. Is she originally from Somalia? So how are they doing it? How's their government? Do they have a president? Do they have a council? Do they have anything? Do they have police? I love these people that come from a place with nothing, no anything, and then they tell us how to run our country. No, I think if she got censured, that's great. If she got impeached, that's even better. They impeached me twice for nothing. And they impeached me knowing the Republicans are on my side, so they knew it was just, but they impeached me. She should be impeached, and it should happen fast. I think she should be impeached.
Well, there you go.
There's no impeachment process for House members, but the House can determine its membership. They literally can. Like, there's a lot of levity with the members of the House of Representatives to determine who can be in their various positions. And when there are certain things that body finds onerous enough to take action to kick them out, they can kick them out. Ilhan Omar can get kicked out of Congress by her fellow members. Now, politically, will that happen? I can't imagine that. But there were 4 Republicans who voted against this censure last time. Ilhan Omar is literally in one package everything that's bad about some of these members of Congress that we elect. I've said many times, it scares me who we elect to Congress. She is literally the worst of them all. This is a woman who falsified immigration processes by marrying her brother so that he could come to the United States. I can't remember if it helped her as well, too. But he is right to point out, she comes from a really, really horrible country that is still poorly run after decades. And coming here and lecturing us about what the United States is, I'm sorry. She's got it wonderful in the United States. And for all of our faults, this is still the best country on earth to live in, and all she does is beat us down. She doesn't support our Constitution. She's not someone who honors and respects what the United States is about. It's not because she's Muslim, and maybe that motivates her, but it's because she doesn't honor the country. It's just the illegitimacy of who this woman is as an American, to me, is quite crazy. And there are a decent amount of people like that. I still think with legal aliens who have come here that the vast, vast majority of them are glad to be in this country. But there is a handful like her who beat us down constantly. I'm not going to give her any quarter on this. She is absolutely an absurd human being. And there are a lot of people you can make that case for who are in Congress. I think all of them legitimately can serve if they get elected. She is that one, I think, who is most illegitimate in her actions as a member of Congress. She's an absurd human being, in my opinion.
Yep. And she's, for how much she dogs on the country, they have basically taken over Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota, basically. Yeah,
I'm always cautious to try to make a big Muslim baiting thing, but there is a large group of people in Minneapolis, not just Muslims, but natural, native born Americans as well, too, who have absolutely deconstructed that city. And it's a really cool city. Anyone through the years that has ever been to downtown Minneapolis, and I have a couple times, I'm not deeply familiar with the city, but I've been there. They had a very wonderful downtown area. It was a wonderful place to visit. It has absolutely become an absurd area for people to live in. I have friends who live in Minneapolis, and they don't go into the city anymore. They stay as far away as they can. It's really crazy. The Muslim population there is part of it, but you've got these radical leftists that live there. This city may be the worst home of radical leftist Democrat thinking in this country, and people that are paying the price for it. You would just hope somehow that citizens, and I'm sure that the majority of citizens, even Democrats in that city, really hate what's going on. They're disgusted by it. You would just hope that sometime in one of these Democrat cities, the people would rise up and say, we've had enough of it. But they're about to elect a Muslim mayor who's probably more radical left than even Zohan Mamdani and in New York. They just keep doing this, and I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me.
Yep. Well, in other news, we have Rep. Maxwell Frost labels Republicans and President Trump as fascists, says fascism is not on the way, it is here. Watch this.
Donald Trump doesn't want a democracy, he wants a throne, and his cronies are clearing the way. The president and his lapdogs here in the United States Congress, the vice president, the FCC chair, the attorney general, secretary of state, and congressional Republicans are implementing a dangerous agenda to punish their opposition. Fascism is not on the way, it is here. The First Amendment is how generations of Americans, from civil rights activists to labor organizers, American worker, LGBTQ plus activists, have fought for progress, and it is our power. Donald Trump doesn't.
All right. So, I mean, when you're telling people that and someone hears that, what's, I just fuels more violence, I think. If you're lying to someone and saying fascism is here, what is the answer to fascism for these people?
But listen, Democrats are going to continue down the line of calling Trump fascist. They've pulled back from calling him Hitler because they're losing even on the fascist end of things. American people, I don't believe, are accepting that. But tell me the last fascist leader that was trying to implement policy and had a wave of judicial opinions that go against them who actually followed those judicial opinions. The literal definition of fascism, and I was hearing Victor Davis Hanson talk about this on his podcast recently. The literal definition of fascism is someone who either takes over their position illegitimately bypassing elections, or once elected, tears down institutions. In no way is Donald Trump tearing down institutions. He's operating completely inside those institutions. But on the other side, the Democrat side of things, we have this one incident, which I know we'll talk more about, with Jimmy Kimmel getting his program canceled off, and now suddenly we have a free speech problem. Listen, my great concern for this country is that Democrats, as currently constructed, ever get back into power. We just went through 10 years of a literal censorship industrial complex built initially during the Trump administration by deep state actors in the intelligence agencies who were shutting down speech. I mean, the literal deep state was lying about what happened in the election of 2020. They said that Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian disinformation. They lied about many other things, literally undermining the president that they were by obligation ordered to serve. And then during the Biden administration, they ramped up the initiatives. They institutionalized them more greatly, so that a censorship industrial complex was shutting down every conservative voice out there. Literally every conservative voice that tried to make any progress in social media or media was shut out. There were very few avenues of getting out information until Elon Musk bought Twitter and revealed the censorship industrial complex for everyone to see through the exposure of the Twitter files. This was Democrats. Democrats, if they ever got into power in a similar way like they did during the Biden administration, will literally shut down every conservative voice. You and I may not even be able to do anything that we're doing at this very moment in the future if Democrats get in power. One guy gets taken down from his show on television under circumstances which, I mean, I have some misgivings about, but that one guy gets taken down from his television program, and we're supposed to be afraid of free speech We're supposed to look to Democrats to protect our free speech? Are you kidding me? That's the most absurd thing, logically and objectively, that I've ever heard in my life. Democrats are working every single day to shut down conservative Americans, MAGA supporters. So much so that their president in this last administration did a speech in Philadelphia where he called every Trump supporter, literally every Trump supporter, an enemy of the state. He did that in dramatic fashion with red lights in the background, an ominous backdrop, and an ominous speech where he was was successfully at the time, upholding his efforts of censorship and calling out reasons for his censorship to be maintained and broadened. And we've got quote after quote after quote after quote of Democrats saying that certain people don't deserve free speech. You do not have that from Republicans. I mean, if you do, it's a very rare breed. And I can't even imagine who that is yet. This is a serious issue. The seriousness of the First Amendment issue is upon the Democrat Party, which is an illegitimate, un-American party that is determined to undermine our Constitution and break down the real institutions that make us strong. The only institution that makes this country strong is not those that are propped up in Washington, D.C. here. They are the institution of the American people. It's the American people who deserve to have their voice heard. They were very clear last November what they wanted. They've got it. They're mostly still approving of it. And, the Trump administration's hands are clean. There's nothing fascist about Donald Trump at all. The potential fascism, if it exists at all in this country, lay in Democrat hands. They are the ones who, in reality, act in a fascist manner by breaking down our institutions, as we saw so fully during the Biden administration.
Yeah, and I think the biggest part is there might be some questions here on how this was done and if the FCC should have been involved or if he should have come out and made any threats. But Democrats are the last people who can come out here and cry about free speech after what we've been through for the past 4 to 8 years.
They literally have nothing to say about it.
Yeah. I mean,
heal thyself,
Yeah.
They are the ones who need the healing here. They're the ones that need the repentance and the change of heart. They're not likely to do it through any of their elected officials. But I will tell you this, Democrat voters are willing to do so. Tens of millions of them, as I've said repeatedly recently, voted for Donald Trump and gave him a majority of votes in this country. A lot of that majority came from Democrats voting for Donald Trump. And I hold no ill will towards the vast majority of Democrat voters, but I refuse unity with Democrat elected officials, with the left-wing media. If we put this in their hands, they will take us down. That is their literal intent. That is what they are doing under a Maoist cultural revolution style regime that includes everything Mao believed in except the mass killings. And that I don't blame them for, nor do I attribute any motive like that on their part. But they will destroy every political opponent utilizing government means. That is, if anything can be defined as fascism, that comes very close to it.
Yep. Well, the FCC commissioner is out there today he's on who's the host's name?
Scott Jennings Show.
Scott Jennings Show. That's right. And
he's Scott Jennings' new radio show. He just started that recently.
Yep, and he's the guy on CNN who's always takes on.
Who's so excellent.
Yeah, he takes on them all by himself. But here is FCC Chair Brendan Carr, and he's announcing that they may launch an investigation into The View.
Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers at NBC. Just wondering, do you have comments on those shows, and are they doing what Kimmel did Monday night, and is it even worse on those programs, in your opinion?
Well, if you can be unfunny, that's fine. And a lot of people are sort of saying that, well, people are punishing Kimmel because they don't like a joke that he told. But, we don't need to rehash it here. But obviously what he said was not a joke. It wasn't presented at all that way. But when you look at these other TV shows, what's interesting is the FCC does have a rule called the equal opportunity rule, which means, for instance, if you're in the run-up to an election, you have one partisan elected official on, you have to give equal time, equal opportunity to the opposing partisan politician. So far, so good. But there's an exception to that rule called the bona fide news exception, which means if you are a bona fide news program, you don't have to abide by the equal opportunity rule. And over the years, the FCC has developed a body of case law on that and has suggested that most of these late night shows, other than SNL, are bona fide news programs. And potentially, I would assume you can make the argument that The View is a bona fide news show. But I'm not so sure about that. And I think it's worthwhile to have the FCC look into whether The View and some of these other programs that you have still qualify as bona fide news programs and therefore exempt from the equal opportunity regime that Congress has put in place.
Got about 30 seconds.
All right, there you go.
Well, I wish I'd sent the video over to you. Probably should have, of Johnny Carson, who, when you consider late night programs of this day and age, and Johnny Carson had the Tonight Show for so many years. These late night news programs don't get anywhere near the audience that Johnny Carson got. Like, if you really look at the numbers closely, it's embarrassing how poor the ratings are for every late night talk show program. That format is dying, and it's dying through self-destruction because it's turned into radically political programming. Now, the case law, as Brendan Carr points out, allows them to be considered bona fide news programs. But the Johnny Carson reference I wanted to make, there's a video of Johnny Carson being asked by Mike Wallace many years ago on 60 Minutes
news show. But I'm not
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. He was being asked by Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes many years ago about political content. And Johnny Carson said, I don't want to do political content. We'll make political jokes and this or that. And he was always very fair. He hit both sides of the aisle just as hard as each other. And he said, but I don't want to be news commentary. That's not what I bring to people. And they want an escape from things in the evening, and we give them entertainment in that fashion. The late night talk shows have turned to radically leftist content, radical leftist lean. They don't, in the case of Stephen Colbert, he didn't even have Republicans on his program unless they were rhino squishes that agreed with him. And even that very rarely. So the case law apparently allows these people to be considered bona fide news programs because they ask for their own guests. People can't push for them. Of course, I'm sure that they do. And that breaks one of the rules of bona fide news. Now, I think Brendan Carr is kind of pushing the envelope on this. I'm not entirely comfortable with how this came down from the side of the FCC. I think you could have just let Jimmy Kimmel, lose on his own merits because he was on his way to doing that anyway.
Yeah, his ratings were already terrible anyways.
Well, yeah. One of the reasons it was really easy for them to let him go is they're not making money on these shows. Yep. Stephen Colbert was the worst example. If they're making money on Jimmy Kimmel's, they're barely making any money. They expend tens of millions of dollars every year. So I listen, I would not have had the FCC put the straw on the camel's back that made it break, because that's literally what happened. It was a very light push. It was a suggestion that we look at the licenses. You've got ABC and ABC affiliate stations around the country all up in arms. Some of those affiliates, Sinclair and Nexstar, polled Jimmy Kimmel after that incident, and then the rest of it fell down because ABC decided to pull him off. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't want government telling people what they need to do. But one other thing that argues for Brendan Carr's effort here is the legal regime that he is working under is something that Congress passed. I mean, this is Congress laws. He said there's case law behind this, but the law itself, if you can call these programs entertainment programs, would have a requirement for equal time. And they don't do that. So I don't know about all that. I don't think that's the best way to go about this. But the reality is, this is a nothing burger when it comes to free speech. There's a little problem here, and I've got a problem with the FCC on this, but this is a literal nothing burger. This has nothing to do with anything related to the real threats to free speech in this country and undermining our First Amendment. And that, as I argued already, lay with the Democrats.
Yep. And the one thing that we were talking about today is with the FCC, one of the reasons they gave one of the, their standards for Jimmy Kimmel was public interest standard. The only problem with that I see is who decides what is in the public's interest. Once someone else is in charge and you have all these radio networks out here, they can come along and say, well, conservative values aren't in the public interest, or, talking about LGBTQ issues or, Islam is not in the public interest, and therefore we're taking your license. So,
well, Brendan Carr made the point, I think it was Brendan Carr who made the point, rightly so, that this all began, I think he posted this or something, this all began in the 1930s. The FCC was created by the FDR administration. The argument for it at the time was that there were very few people, because of the costs involved, who could come in and create broadcast stations. The whole broadcast regime was very new at the time. In the 1930s, television was just on the horizon. They saw that coming, and they knew that would expand it. And because so few actors could come in and do something in that area, they wanted to regulate it to make sure the public interest was being served, because it was such a powerful medium. Radio was very powerful, and television was going to be even more powerful. So they put in this regulatory regime as a way to make sure that public interest was served. And we're 100 years on the back end of this, where in almost every instance, such actions were taken against conservative voices. The fairness doctrine, which came out of the FCC and ruled the day for, I think, almost 50 years by the 1980s, had a strict requirement that if anyone of a political nature were on, you absolutely had to give equal time. I mean, down to the minute, equal time. The Reagan administration took away the fairness doctrine, which had exclusively benefited Democrats and people on the left because of the way the regulation was enforced. That was taken away by the Reagan administration. When that happened, that's how we got Rush Limbaugh on the radio. Rush Limbaugh could not have done his format prior to, I think it was 1987 that doctrine was removed, and his program came up very shortly thereafter. And he was the first instance prior to Elon Musk buying Twitter that conservatives got a strong and powerful voice across the nation. It did not exist prior to that time. So we do have a lessening of deep First Amendment implicated restrictions on what happened in broadcast. It's much more mild now. But just the fact that you have such a regulatory regime, I think, is absurd. I would love to get rid of the FCC, or at least maybe restrict it to administering who can buy and sell various radio frequencies. That may be a good instance, but I'm kind of pushing the envelope just to say that. There's no need for an FCC. Brendan Carr, I think, realizes that too. But that's a little of background that people need to be aware of here.
Yeah, and I mean, these radio stations and cable networks are going out. So once they completely phase out, we just have to make sure that there's nothing set up like this for the internet or for streaming, where they regulate, different channels like this. So, well,
there's less regulation in the cable area of things.
Yeah,
there's some, but there's less. But when it comes to broadcast networks, and even though most of the viewers of ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, these major broadcast stations, they're still under a broadcast regime, even though you can get them on cable networks. So, the whole landscape's changed. The regulation have not kept up with the times. And so you do have potential problems like this. But again, I just want to reemphasize what Brendan Carr was doing this week is nothing compared to what Democrats have been doing every bit for the last 10 years. And frankly, going back into the Obama administration.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's end off on a clip from the smartest person in Congress here. Here we go.
I understood what was kind of pushing them there. And so I do want people to know that just because someone has committed a crime, it doesn't make them a criminal. That is completely different. Being a criminal is more so about your mindset. Committing a crime can come for a lot of different reasons. I
love how the guy who's interviewing goes, so deep.
Yeah, like she said something important. I mean, I'm not even sure precisely what she said. and to put criminality in the mind and in the action, and it just, I mean, you know, you can't criminalize your mind. It's your actions. If you've committed a criminal act,
you are a criminal.
Just like the shooter of Charlie Kirk. If you committed a criminal act, you're guilty for that criminal act. Don't try to bring all the other stuff into it. Murder is not does not need a hate crime on top of it to make it worse.
Yeah, I think
it's a hate crime all by itself.
I think Kamala taught her a few tricks.
I think so. Yeah, this is proof that someone can be considered relatively intelligent by changing their accent, because she was a fully Ebonics, accent style person, and then tried to change that around when she got into the political scene. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of absurdity to people like Jasmine Crockett, and that statement made no sense at all.
Yep. Well, we are all out of time, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Tonight on the Worldview Report, Jimmy Kimmel gets canned from his late night show over comments he made about MAGA related to Charlie Kirk's assassination. The Federal Reserve slashes interest rates by 25 basis points, the first of 3 cuts expected for the remainder of this year. Luxembourg joins the recognized Palestine bandwagon. The Muslim mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, has shocked the city with his threats against a Christian resident who objected to the glorification of violent jihad. And President Trump threatens to unleash the power of federal law enforcement against journalists who he believes aren't treating him fairly. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.